What's up, everybody? How you doing? Don't forget, Monday, October 3rd, the name of this podcast will be changing from the Gospel Fire to the Blueprint. So Monday, October 3rd, Gospel Fire to the Blueprint. Nothing else is changing. Same link, same feed, same everything. Just a new name, just a rebrand. So October 3rd this year, don't be fooled by the new name. What's up, my ninjas? This is former UFC fighter Elliot Marshall, and this is the Gospel Fire, where we are going to learn how to go into the fire so that we can find our power and live the best life possible. This episode of the podcast is with Rosie Acosta. Rosie is a mindfulness and yoga teacher, and man, we barely talked about really yoga at all. We talked a lot about mindfulness. We talked a lot about how she was able to literally change her life from a gangbanger to this entrepreneur and businesswoman that she is now. One of my favorite podcasts that I've ever done. Just the energy of it and hearing her story and how much she and I really agreed. So that I can't wait for you to listen to it. Here we go. Without further ado, Rosie Acosta.
Rosie, you just took a drink of coffee. Is it good coffee or is it crappy coffee or is it tea?
It's tea.
Okay. All right.
It's tea.
All right.
Yeah. It's chai rooibos.
As long as it's
tea.
not bad coffee.
No, it's funny. I'm not
a
coffee person.
I'm a full-on coffee snob.
Are you? Tell me about it.
I'm sure the listeners are tired of hearing about it, but I just love good coffee.
What's the best coffee?
There's so many. There's no best. But there's bad.
Oh.
Right? Like there's bad coffee. So I'll drink tons of. There's so much good coffee that it's so easy to find. But there's tons of bad coffee. Dunkin' Donuts bad. Starbucks bad. Gas stations bad. I try my very, very best not to go to any of those places.
I mean, have you ever been desperate enough to be, well, that's probably why you know how bad they are, because you've been desperate and you're like, I'm just going to do this.
Rosie, we're going to start this off with a bang, okay? I believe coffee is also like sex. So
here we go.
Sex is better than no sex. So bad coffee is better than no coffee. So that's how I see it.
Wow. Okay. That's where we're going.
All right. That's where we started here early. So yeah, in a pinch, I'll have terrible coffee, because why not? But anyway, let's talk about you. Let's talk about you.
The only reason I ask, look, I know you're going to ask me questions and, we're going to get to know each other, but it's just part of my innate nature to just ask questions too. I'm genuinely curious. And when people are coffee people, like it's like people that drink, I don't drink, right? So for me, it's like people that I've always had this like fantasy of becoming a wine drinker. I love the ritual of it. I love how people have this, like, I've tried it, it's just like, to me, it's a flavor thing. Like I don't have a sophisticated palate, so I can't appreciate. I've had clients that have given me like hundreds of dollars worth of wine. And I'm like, you open the bottle. I'm like, okay, like there must be something to, and I'm just like, wow, this is fucking awful. Like I don't like it, and it to me, it's like a waste. Right. But I always have this fantasy of becoming some really sophisticated wine person that knows about the notes, etc. Now I compare it to being a coffee drinker, people that drink coffee that have a sophisticated palate, as you are clearly showing us here.
But I only have it with coffee. Like I don't have it with like beer or wine per se. Like I hate expensive beer. Like the upscale beers, I think they taste god awful to me. I want like Bud Light or like Shock Top, like so like it's okay. Like And part of the podcast, look, we're moving the name to the blueprint. It might be released already. That's okay. That's not part of it, right? Like the key is to find what you like and then make that happen for yourself. So like if you like, I can't stand Chicago pizza. I don't think that's pizza. I think that's bread with sauce on it. Pizza's New York pizza. But look, if you're a Chicago pizza type person, do your thing. I'm not gonna I'll die on the hill that Chicago sucks, but you should die on the hill that New York sucks. And I'm fine with that.
That's the same way I feel about Mexican food in Texas. I think it's the absolute worst Mexican food. I love
Tex-Mex.
No, I'm Hispanic. I grew up with the little Mexican grandmother making tortillas, grinding the corn, making them by hand, having real, authentic, homemade, homegrown Mexican food. Like, so I'm already ruined, right? For most restaurants, most places, I'm already going to have a high standard. But yeah, I went to Texas. One of the first times I went to Texas, so my mom grew up in Texas, and then she came to LA, met my dad. It's just a long story. She remarried, my stepdad and lived in Texas, was in Texas for a long time with my little sister. And so I was in Texas. I spent a lot of time in Texas, but I just could not find that good, authentic Mexican food. I tried the Tex-Mex. It just wouldn't compare. But what I will tell you is I've traveled across the country. I've gone from the East Coast to the West Coast. I've driven close to 14,000 miles across the country. And by far the best Mexican food I've ever had, Washington, D.C.
Really? That's interesting. That's really Washington, D.C. Because I love the Mexican food in L.A. I think L.A. has great Mexican food.
Yeah, they have some great places here for sure. But, I'm a snob. I'm a Mexican food snob.
All right. Enough food, enough coffee. Let's get into It's okay. It was a great conversation to start. So you were born in L.A., right? Into a rather rough upbringing, let's say a little bit. Describe that for me, just because I always like to say that, I don't like to say that, if you would have ended up in jail, let's say, which I know you almost did, and we'll get into that. If you would have ended up in jail, that's not falling through the cracks. That's landing where you should, right? That's landing where most people with a rough upbringing in a very poor minority neighborhood, they end up there. Falling through the cracks is what you did. Like you were like, yo, look, I'm out, right? You found that crack. So what was your upbringing like? What was your childhood?
Yeah, so I grew up in East LA. I was born and raised Los Angeles. Both my parents are immigrants. My dad is from Mexico. My mom was raised in Mexico, but her family immigrated from Spain, so they're Spanish. And
are you a dreamer?
Am I a dreamer? Yes.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So, no, but are dreamers born here? They are, right?
Dreamers are born here.
Yeah.
Illegal parents, but born here.
Right. Well, my parents are legal, but
were they legal when they had? At that time, they were illegal or legal?
At the time, they were illegal, I think.
So you're a dreamer, yeah.
Yeah. So my parents came here, did that whole thing. We grew up in a really, impoverished area with a lot of other immigrant families, and it wasn't too bad as a child. I don't remember. I mean, I remember having a lot of good times, a lot of good, outdoor barbecues, a lot of gatherings, lots of music. But as we got older and some of the youth started to grow older, there was a lot of, kids getting into trouble, lots of gangs. And then at the height of it was during the 92 LA riots, where everything just really hit the fan. And so that sort of set off this really chaotic environment. There was gang wars. There was, just a lot of violence. So I would say from the ages of 6 to 10, I grew up around a lot of, fear and trauma. So that
in
was
92. How old were you? 6? You were 6
in 92. In 92 I was 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I was 9. So I was, old enough to know what's happening.
Sure.
And,
I think that's a distinction, right? Like when you're really young and poor and things, like you don't know any different.
Right.
But then when you start to see, or if when you either get older and you see like, oh, wow, there's more, or if you go from the haves to the have-nots, then you know a difference. If you just have not, then you just don't really know.
When you don't have anything, you don't know that you don't have anything. You're just like, and all your friends, everybody around you is experiencing the same disposition. Everybody is having the same experience. So that was my childhood in a nutshell. By the time my parents separated, by the time I was 10, I ended up staying near East LA. We ended up moving to a little town outside of Monterey Park called Rosie. To San Gabriel Valley. And I became a product of my environment. Just like everybody else, I was getting in trouble with the law. I was ditching school. I was, experimenting with drugs, underage drinking, just the whole gamut, right? So by the time I was a teenager, I was getting in trouble with the law. I was getting arrested, and I was, heading down that predisposition path.
How long were you in that?
How long was I in that? I would say probably about 4 to 5 years. It started when I was like in the 6th grade. And I mean, by the time I was 13 years old, I was smoking pot every day. Like I was that kid, that was part of my lifestyle. And I was a freshman in high school and just ditching school, just being a naughty kid. And by the time I was 15, I had been arrested for the first time. I was getting in fights in school. I was getting bullied. I was bullying back. Like it was just okay. I mean, this was the thing. It wasn't norm. This was normal. It wasn't like this was anything out of the ordinary. This is just a typical upbringing in the area that I grew up in. So
day in the life of Rosie, right? Day in the life of Rosie. That's what it was.
Yeah. So when I was 15, then when I got arrested, this was the second time I got arrested. And I'm talking real arrest. I'd been in trouble with the law several times prior to that. But for some reason, I always had that lucky charm, something I would just get let off with a warning. I was always very well spoken. So police officers would always just sort of be like, oh, she's just, hanging out the wrong people. But I was just really smart, So the last time I got arrested, that really changed my life. I got set on this path that I was either going to become a product of the system and this was going to be it, or this was an opportunity to change my life. Yeah.
Ooh, what was the opportunity? What was laid in front of you?
So I got arrested for trying to steal a cop car.
Fuck yeah! You went full hangover.
Oh, I went for it. Oh yeah, and I wasn't. And I can't say. I'd love to change the story and say that I was high or that I was peer pressured by somebody. It just was dumb. Like just a dumb. The whole scenario. I write about it in my book. Actually, it's in like the first 2 chapters. Just a dumb decision, just it clearly demonstrates the mindless navigating of my life. And so, yeah, I got arrested, and this was part of the run of the mill of all the other teenagers. So it was me and a bunch of other, like homies, kids that looked like me, kids that were getting into trouble, all boys. And I was the only girl. And I remember the judge basically said, I could send you to jail, but given that I could send you to jail given that you had a couple of run-ins with the law, but I have, I believe that you have the capacity to change things around, and I'm going to give you 6 months probation, so that you can prove me wrong, essentially. And 6 months came, and I couldn't really do it, because I was still kind of like, oh, I don't really care. So what? Who cares? I got arrested. It's like no big deal. I'm just going to be on probation for the rest of my life. Like, who knows how long I'm going to live? I didn't really have a projection of my life. But what it did do is I had already been suffering from anxiety and panic attacks, but this really set me off on a panic tangent. I would get these bouts of panic, and I didn't really want to go to jail. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to be like everybody else I was growing up around. And so I knew that the choice to change my life needed to be made in that 6 month period. And so I just decided that I didn't want to prove everyone right. It was like, I didn't have that desire in me, how people sometimes have this calling, or they're compelled to go against the system and say like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, I didn't have that. I just didn't want to make people right. I'm like, I know I can't prove you wrong. I might not have the capacity to be some vision of success, but I definitely don't want you to be right, because everybody around me expected me to fail. I didn't have support. I didn't have no role models. Like, my parents were pissed. I was like I was the bad seed. I was the bad child, because I was getting in trouble and bringing, like this
shame to the name.
Shame to my family. And like, after everything everybody went through, like, here I am throwing my life away. And so, so I was having these panic attacks, and all of this really came together during a time where I needed to figure out a way to distance myself from the people that were, essentially my friends, my family, that was getting me into these scenarios where I was making bad decisions. So that's actually when I found yoga and meditation. My mom's friend had come home with these, she had given my mom these pamphlets to the Self-Realization Fellowship, which is a fellowship here in LA for people that are familiar. Paramahansa Yogananda was a yogi from like the early 20s and 30s. He brought yoga to the West, essentially. And it was very much marketed to the LA Hollywood crowd as this sort of new age way of living.
That's how you can say it. Rich white people. It's okay.
Yeah. It's like it was the way of
it's okay.
Law of attraction, and it's like it was marketed towards like the Hollywood crowd, and they ended up building these centers, right? So that was really that was cool for me to explore, because I was like into new agey things. I'm a recovering Catholic, right? So for me, like, anything outside of Catholicism was attractive,
Okay. So when you say recovering Catholic, when did your end of Catholicism? When did you end being Catholic and start recovering?
Oh, when I was I write about that in my book. Actually, that's in the first chapter too. Happy to share the story. I got kicked out of catechism class because I was asking too many questions. Catechism. Catechism is like your indoctrination school when you're like a child. Like, I was like, I don't know. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it's 8 or 9, and you are taken to these every Sunday. It's like Sunday school. So if you're familiar with Christianity, it's very much, it's like Sunday school. Like, catechism is a preparation for you to make your first communion, essentially.
Got it. Okay.
Sacrament. So I was getting in the middle of my indoctrination, and there was this incident that happened where we were supposed to see God's hand come down to bless the sacred wafer cookie that people take to do the first communion during.
Like, you're actually supposed to see the hand?
Well, that nobody had said to me that it was like a figurative. I don't know that it was a figurative or not. She said we were going to see God's hand come down and touch the fucking wafer. And I didn't want, I was happy to lie. I'd already lied to cops. Like, I was an adept liar at that age, to not get people in trouble. I was like, I was fine with lying, but I didn't want to lie in the house of God because I was like, no, this is God. Jesus will punish me. And she asked everybody in the classroom to raise their hands to say who saw God's hand come down to touch the wafer cookie, and everybody but me raised their hand. And part of me was compelled to just raise my hand. I'll never forget that feeling because I'm like, oh, just do what everybody else is doing. But there was this thing inside of me that I still have to this day that I don't even know what it's called. It's like my driving force, right? Where I'm just like I call it like my rage against the machine sentiment. It's like my, fuck the system. It's like I was not about to lie in the house of God. Like I was just not going to do that.
How can you lie to God, right?
I mean, why would
you're lying or not?
Yeah, this is what I've been trained to believe, that God is like, you don't lie. So I thought it was a test. I'm like, oh, I'm going to pass this test. So then the nun, the lady giving us the...
This is an amazing story.
This nun lady that was like...
This is amazing.
Telling us, okay, so why, those of you that didn't see God's hand, don't worry. It'll come, like you will see it one day soon. And I was like, excuse me, miss, like I didn't see it because there was nothing there. Like, and I wasn't trying to fight with this lady that was 4 times my age. Like, I think what I was just I wanted her to tell me that this was a figurative seeing, that this was like maybe even an energy. I could have got on board with that. But she straight kicked me out of class because I was like being disruptive. And I'm like, I just literally I'm just asking you why I didn't. You're saying everybody else. Go ahead. You go.
I have no problem I have no problem if people talk to God, like none at all. It makes total sense to me. I think we all talk to whatever that God is to us.
Sure.
I have a big problem when he talks back. Like if you think he's talking back, like actual words, now I'm like, we got it. Maybe you need some help.
The minute that somebody says to me, the minute that somebody says, God told me ... to tell you, which I've had people come to me, I'm like, listen.
Oh yeah, me too.
Let's cut that right there.
We can do it. We can talk about it in the figurative sense. We can talk about it in this energy sense. Like I'm fine with all of that.
Me too.
We can talk about it as like some sign, like a light turned on, or I can get down with all of that, whether I believe it or blah, 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 whatever. But the second you tell me you heard words, I'm out. I'm out.
What is this? I can't do it. That freaks me out.
Yeah. I'm
scary.
out. No, nobody talks to you,
Yeah.
So
anyway, I became a disenfranchised Catholic. And that's why I say I'm a recovering Catholic, because some of that shit you can't undo the rest of your life.
Look, I'm Jewish. My grandparents survived the Holocaust. And, my mom's actually sitting behind me here. You can't see her, she's through the window. But I am Jewish. So I don't believe in anything those books say. But because my grandparents survived the Holocaust, I'm a Jew.
Right. Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like until my grandmother goes to the next lifetime, like she's still living, like I'm still a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. Right. Like that's just, my family.
You're going to do it for her.
Catholic.
Yeah, you're going to do it for all of them. For sure.
Yeah, but I always kind of have that disclaimer, like I'm a recovering Catholic, because I need people to understand that what's there is there. But we've evolved. We've moved and found things that are more suitable to our spiritual path. So,
how did you get yourself out of this? Like, what do the steps look like for you when it was like, okay, this life isn't working, right? Like I'm gonna prove, I don't want to prove them right. Like, so what did you start doing? Tangible things that Rosie started doing in her life to move from point A to point B. Because I think this is where people really start to struggle.
Yeah. So I love this question because part of, what I love, Elliot, your background as well, it's really inspiring, to be able to go from point A to point B and make your own roles, essentially. Like I really love people that can build a career and forge a path on their own and want to sort of share that wisdom and knowledge with other people. So And I like to know, like, how exactly does this happen? I want to know,
Mm-hmm.
like, tell me exactly what happened. So I think for me, it was a daily decision it was like a game of attrition for me, because I really needed to remove myself, not only from the people that were my friends, but also the environment that I was in. Now, I couldn't afford to move to the West Side because I was in the East Side, and I was a teenager. So it wasn't like I could move to another environment. So I'm like, okay, how do I remove myself from the situation? So I had to play this dance of essentially avoiding my friends and my people by getting in trouble at school so that I'd get detention during recess and after school, so I wouldn't have to see my friends and interact with them. So it was like this double, like, getting in trouble so that I didn't get in trouble. And it was making these small decisions every day of, okay, like, I have to avoid being around the people that were toxic to my life, because not that they were toxic people. And I still very much love my friends, and some of them are still friends of mine to this day. But they were not conducive to me staying out of trouble. So it's interesting once you make that, to me, it's like the one, a friend of mine, mentor, friend, his name is Coach Mike Bayer. He wrote this really great, he's written several books, but one, it's called One Decision. And every time I think about that one decision, all it took was one decision it's almost like I made the decision of taking myself out of that environment, and everything else just happened. Like, this is where we can get woo, right? Like, when you're at the right place at the right time, and those things start to come into your life, those opportunities, those calls, those people. The minute I took myself out of that environment, everything in my life changed almost at an instant.
I know what you're saying. It's a small thing.
Yeah.
It's a very small but very large thing.
Yes.
Right? Like, and then you just kept doing the very, very small things.
Exactly. But over and over.
And I think the woo part of it is, like, you have to believe it, right? You have to truly believe it. And for me, I had a very interesting weekend with on this belief topic, in a little bit of a different way, with my youngest kid. He's very athletic. He's been playing up in grades, and he's got this older brother that is beating the hell out of him, and he's only 9, but the kid can play some ball sports, and last weekend he had a really great game. He had 23 points in a 9-year-old basketball game, a competitive league, but that's a lot of points, So I was trying to prepare him on Friday as we were driving to practice, that man, he might not, that might not happen again, because that's hard. I was like, dude, you might not play that well tomorrow. And he looks at me when we're talking about this belief thing, and he goes, why not? He just looks at me and goes, why not? And so much clicked for me about him in that moment. He truly believes that he's going to play amazing every single game, to the point where, when he actually loses, when his brother beats him, he throws a fit. He throws a fit like you couldn't believe, because of course your brother's going to beat you. He's 12, you're 9. But it doesn't even cross his mind, right? It doesn't even cross his mind. So when it actually happens, it's like the end of the world to him, right? So he asks me Friday night to make a bet. And I'm like, okay, what's the bet? He goes, if I score more than 23, Dad, you buy me 2 milkshakes instead of 1. And I was like, done. I was like, cool. It's 3 minutes into the game on Saturday. He drains this 3-pointer. He turns back and looks at me and goes, told you. And he only has 7 points at this point. And then he just went off. But it's what you're saying. He made the decision that he was going to have a better game.
Yeah. And
right? You made the decision that you weren't going to live this life.
And isn't it wild to think that, as parents, I don't have kids yet. I have a couple of nieces and nephews that I adore and love, and they're ranging from ages 6 to 2. And I love
Okay.
giving them back to their parents, right? So for me, it's just
Sure. That's
amazing.
the best part. That's
love
the best
it.
part. Oh yeah.
I mean, I still get naps. Like Tori and I have been together for almost 20 years. Like we talk occasionally about having kids, and maybe we decide to do it later. Who knows? Maybe we don't, and it's totally fine. But I'm always so fascinated by first of all, I think being a parent is a thankless job, and I think it's incredible. Like I don't think parents get enough clout and enough like glorification, because it truly is a wild responsibility and true testament to the type of fabric of human being you are, right? Because you're literally,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you're raising another little human, humanoid. But what I find fascinating is that your son, so I really think this is innate. I think that most kids are really born with this belief and this like jovial sense of accomplishing anything, right? But like we get in the way of saying
the world crushes them.
The world, and we don't want that to happen. Like we want to prepare, right? So in my preparing, my niece for, we're raising, monarch butterflies, right? And all the caterpillars don't always make it, right? So it's like, okay, some of these guys are not going to make it. And, you have to just always prepare. Like in a way, my sort of attachment that has been hurt by losing some of my little caterpillars.
Your own sadnesses.
Yeah. My own sadness is trying to prepare her for not having the same loss. Right.
Right.
But then it's like, she's like, oh, but what if they all make it? And it's just like, oh.
Yeah. That's how I was like, because I try really hard. Like he swears, like my youngest swears he's going into the NBA. Like he just swears it. Like he's not even going to college. Like we were away somewhere. We went to basketball camp at University of North Carolina over the summer. And he goes, I guess maybe I could do this. And I'm like, what do you mean maybe? I was like, maybe go to college? He goes, yeah, maybe go to college. I'm like, no, dude, you're going to college. He go, like if you want to play, you're going to college. He goes, Dad, I don't need college. I'm going straight to the NBA. Like, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to crush his dreams, right? Because that's what happens. The world crushes your dreams. Right. The world tells you, no, you can't do that. No, Rosie, you can't get yourself out of where you were to where you are now, right? Like that's not going to happen for you. And then you start to fucking believe it because everyone's telling it to you. What happens if we just told these kids yes?
Yes.
What happens if we just told people, you know what? Okay, yes. Okay, that's what you want? Yes. Now let's go make it happen. What are the steps that it actually takes to make that happen now? Rather than, have a plan B. What happens if it doesn't happen? Right? Because that's what we get told a lot. We get told to have a plan B, right? You're not going to be able to do this. So therefore, make sure you can at least pay your bills, get married, have 2.5 kids in a white picket fence where, you don't really like your spouse that much, but you stay with them and yada, yada, right? And you work this really dumb, boring job. What if we went the other way?
Yeah.
That's, what if we went the other way? Well, we just said, okay. And we just asked everyone, okay, that's what you want. What do you now have to do?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
That's the stories I like to hear about. What did you do?
Yeah. And I love that. And I'm a fan of saying yes. I really do believe. I don't think everyone is the best. But
you don't have to be.
Right. But I believe that every single person has the tools and the capacity to be the best. Like, that's what I believe. Not everybody's the best, but if you have the desire, you have the capacity and the tools you need to be the best. Like, I believe that 100%, And
what I really liked what you said earlier, Rosie, was like, you almost treated you are getting out of this as almost like you were an addict, right? Because when you talk to addicts and they say, and somebody goes, are you going to be sober a year from now? They say, I don't know. I'm going to be sober today. Right? They say, I'm going to be sober today. I'm going to do all the small little things necessary to be sober today. And I think a lot of times people do to us like, okay, there's the goal, right? And it's so lofty and it's so far away that it's very hard to achieve. How about what do you got to do today? Right? If you have a 5-year goal, what do you have to do in 3 years? Okay. To get to 3 years, what do you have to do in 1 year? And what do I got to accomplish this year? What are the 10 things I got to accomplish this year? Okay. Pick 3 of them. And now what am I doing today to get to these 3? That's, and that's what you did, right? That's what you did. You said, I got to get the tension today. It was a weird strategy. I like it.
Yeah, it was a weird.
I got to get the tension today so that I don't hang out with my homies after school.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very strange application, but it was, I mean, look, could I have talked to them and said, I can't hang out with you guys? Probably not, because then I'd get beat up. Like they would literally physically assault me. So this was my way of protecting myself and in a way protecting them. It was almost like there's certain groups that everybody individually is totally fine. You get a group together and all of a sudden it's a recipe for chaos. And this was the people that I hung out with. It was individually, everybody had really just great qualities, but together for some reason, we just brought out the worst sides in each other. And I feel like that's
like almost a mob mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Which is wild, right? We've seen a lot of that in the last 2 years.
Yeah, we have. So, when did you start to like really change? Like, because now, like, tell everyone what you do now and how you really started to make that happen.
Yeah, so I teach yoga and mostly meditation now. So I'm a mindfulness and meditation teacher, and part of what essentially spurned my career path was the fact that the thing that I did consistently as well during this time was meditate. So I learned how to meditate. I started to meditate more consistently. It took many, many years, but by the time I was in my late teens, I was, working, and I had seen my life completely change by making better decisions or just staying out of trouble. Like that was my goal. It wasn't, hey, how do I progress in life? It was like, just stay out of trouble. That was my only job. Stay out of trouble and see what happens. And it's what I was saying earlier about all of these different opportunities just came to my life. And so meditation really became a passion for me, and I wanted to figure out how to bring meditation to people like the people I grew up with. And so I started to study more. And at the time I was working as a hair salon receptionist, and I ended up getting this job to manage this like multi-million-dollar salon in West Hollywood. And I thought that it was so hilarious that they were hiring an ex-criminal to manage like a business, obviously I didn't share that until way later, but
good job.
But that was my career path. And little by little, as time went on, I just began to gain more of a passion for wellness and healthy eating. And, at the time during those teenage years, I was, on the McDonald's diet. So I was really overweight, really unhappy. And again, as all of these things started to change, my mind started to change, my body started to change, and I started to get more physically active, and I started running, and which I hated running more than anything in the world. But I started running, I ended up signing up for the LA Marathon, and then I ended up running 4 marathons after that. And it just all started to really come together. And so by my early 20s, I decided to do my first yoga teacher training, and still working full time. That took another 5 years until I finally got to a place where I felt like I was done doing what you said, how we live these lives, living these careers. I'd had this career at this point, working for other people, helping other people's dreams come to fruition. And I hadn't given myself the opportunity to let mine roam free. So at 26, 27, I decided I want to just quit my day job and really give it a go to becoming a teacher and seeing what happens. And it was hard, rough. Yeah. You don't really make a lot of money teaching yoga classes. But I did.
You don't make a lot of money teaching jiu-jitsu classes either.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was an arduous, I always say to people, any entrepreneurs, you know this, obviously, like it takes a certain type of gravitas to stomach the life of the entrepreneur,
Look, I'm going through this thing right now, and I think it's finally coming to an end, but it lasted almost 3 weeks. I went full viral on Instagram with one post. I'm like 6 million some views for weeks here, right? Like, and I'm probably up almost 7,000 followers in this time, right? But I went full viral, but that just doesn't right? But you're like, oh my God, one thing did it. No, you had to post 10,000 videos and look at 20 views, 30 views, right? Like, and it's just that, right? It's just, you got to stick in the game long enough.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden it happens and you're like, whoa. It was kind of cool to watch the power of the internet. I will say that, right? Like, because I thought I got hacked. Like I logged in the morning and, normal. And then I logged in the afternoon and it was just like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, my account got hacked. Fuck. And then it wasn't, it was this post. But yeah, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Right. And
Elliot,
I know
but you've been doing this for a while. I mean, that's the thing,
Yeah.
And how was that? How is that post different? Yeah. How is that post different than any other content?
It wasn't. It's this. Look, the same post, I put it on TikTok. It got 30 views.
It's just wild.
It got nothing. It did nothing. It's wild. Yeah.
I mean, to me, this is a whole separate podcast. We talk about the sort of what works, what doesn't work. But I think that you're speaking to the core of what it takes to create those moments, because essentially, you're not in control of how other people are going to receive your information, but what you can control is how you're showing up, at the consistency you're showing up, and the value that you're wanting to provide the people whose lives you're wanting to change. I'm assuming that the people that listen to this podcast are people that are motivated or want to be inspired to creating that blueprint for themselves, or they're just trying to find the blueprint that works for them. And I think that most of us already have a sense of what that is. And it's just really a matter of persistence, dedication, discipline, and a willingness to not always get the instant gratification that we want,
and sticking in the game. Yeah. Right. You have to stick in the game because and taking things from other people. Like, look, and I like to call it the blueprint for a reason. Because like the color that I paint the wall in my house, it's not maybe the color that you paint the wall in your house. And that's fine. But the behind the scenes, the structure of the wall is very similar, right? So that's what we want to take. We want to take these structures from people, right? We want to hear Rosie's story. Like, okay, so what did she do first? First, she changed who she was hanging out with, right? And she had to stop hanging out with these people. That's something that I can do. For another young girl who might be like you, a young man who might be like you, that's not my scenario. My circle is okay. So maybe I don't need that piece from Rosie's story. Maybe I need a different piece from Rosie's story. And that's what we need to start really paying attention to, right? Is what are the pieces that the successful use that I can now use in my life? And this doesn't promise a lot of money. I don't, you might not get rich, And we're not talking about rich, and we're not talking about famous, and we're not talking about with my posts 6 million views on Instagram, because that shit doesn't fucking matter, right? For me, it was like, oh, damn, look at that. It finally happened, right? I stayed in the game long enough, and boom, that's the lesson. The lesson is stay in the game. Do you believe in what you're doing? So, okay, great, stay in the game.
I just feel like I just heard exactly what I needed to hear today. I needed that motivational pep talk. So thank you for that.
Well, it sucks for me because well, it doesn't suck for me, right? We're all in the same boat, right? We're all in the same boat, aren't we? You watch Brendan Bouchard's course and he goes, just do this. And then you just do that and it doesn't all, and you're like, oh, great, that didn't work. Right? And then you're like Amy Porterfield, sell your courses like this. And then you just do exactly what she says. And it's like crickets, you know? Right. And you're like, well, I did what you said, right? I did everything you said and nothing.
Yeah.
And nothing.
No, I've done that. I mean, literally, we can do an entire podcast talking about, because I've spent thousands of dollars on trying to figure things out and learn, and trial by fire, trial by error, trial by throwing money at it. Like I've done it all. And to me,
you've done it all wrong.
Yeah. All of it. Because right? The thing is, I think we think that seeing somebody else's template, we can't have somebody else's blueprint. Like we have a thumbprint that is not like anybody else on the planet. Mm-hmm. It's original to you. So why would somebody else's plan work for you? Right? I mean, sometimes it does. But to me, it's like what people aren't seeing is the money that goes behind some of these people marketing these things. Like they're in it to make money too. And they're making money off of us because we're wanting to know how to do it. It's like, that's the racket. Let's be honest.
They're selling. Yeah. Let's be honest. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And the reason I know, and like this whole like mindfulness, helping people with mindfulness, self-help, yada, yada, whatever you want to call it, life coach, yada, yada. Like I've been, for me personally, battling with this, the whole concept of it for so long, because I'm like, man, how the hell, who am I to tell someone how to live their life? You know, like, because I barely make mine work, right? I barely make mine work, but I do. And I have some tips and tricks, right? Some structures, and I want to share that, but I don't want to share it in a way like, yo, listen to me, dog. I know what's up. Like some cult leader, you know, like, come on,
right? I
got this Kool-Aid over here. You know, there's no Kool-Aid.
Right. But that's what makes people Kool-Aid's like you, though. That's what makes people like you so effective, you know, or even somebody like me, where it's like I based my entire career and what I do being honest and living from a place of authentic integrity and knowing I know who I am. I know what I can do. I know exactly who and what I am. And I also know what I can't do and what I'm unwilling to do. And so for me, it's like, I know that a career in this world, the world of wellness, of self-help, whatever you want to call it, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I've seen so many people come and go. I've been doing this for 20 years. Like I've seen a lot of people come and go. And one thing that I see consistent throughout is if you're really in alignment with who you are, people will receive that and you will succeed. No. And that is a fact. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that you being in your truest, realest, most authentic self, teaching on a platform or really giving your wisdom, and it doesn't work for a long period of time. I mean, that's what all of these meditation texts say. Do it for a long period of time without interruption. We should live our lives that way.
Hey, sorry.
Oh no, it's fine.
Hold on. I just got disconnected for a sec. You were saying, can you hear me? Are we good?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You were just saying, and I'll have my editor edit this. You were just saying you've been in the game for 20 years and.
Oh yeah. So I've been at this for 20 plus years, and consistently it's the same. There is one template, right? You stay consistent to who you are, to your most authentic self, and you stay true to the game and you show up consistently, there is no way that you can fail. Absolutely no way you can fail. And I'd love for somebody to prove me wrong, because I've not seen it to this day. For the people out there that can really stay on course, some of the most prolific meditation texts talk about the same thing consistently about meditation or mindfulness. You do it for a long period of time without interruption. You do it for a long period of time without interruption. So if we focus our career in that same commitment, that same discipline, where we could just focus on the content, just focus on what you're putting out there. I mean, look at what happened with you. That's what you've been doing. You've been following that throughout, that consistently, right? Oh no.
Yeah. And obviously you have to like look and adjust and move and be like, okay, that one wasn't like what this was good and things like that. But I think it's what you're saying, right? Like meditating is so simple, right? It's so simple. You sit down or you lay down and you breathe, but it's very hard to do. And right. And people won't do it because they want this instant gratification of it. Oh, I meditated. I feel better. I meditated. And that just doesn't happen. Meditate for a year straight and then assess where my life was, where my life is.
Yeah, no, this is instant gratification is a rampant virus in our society.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And that's why I hate giving the Instagram example, because it's just so instant gratification, right? You're like, oh, likes and views and comments.
Yes, sure. You know? But it's also as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as somebody who's created a life teaching and learning, it's nice to have that feedback that somebody's receiving it. So,
sure.
You just have to take it. It's like the first cover.
It's what you just said. It's feedback.
Yeah, it's feedback. That's all it is.
It's feedback. Yeah. So, Rosie, I'd like to ask a couple questions here as we close. The first one is on the surface, you and I have so little in common, right? You grew up on the West Coast. I grew up on the East Coast. You are female and meditation and yoga. I'm male, and you Google me and it's me punching somebody in the head. What made you say yes to coming on the podcast, right? Because we all only have so many hours in the day and things that we can do it with that time. So why'd you say yes?
Yeah, I love your story, and I love that we're complete opposite. I have an affinity for athletes. I think that it takes a certain type of perseverance to become an athlete in general. So I always have that, appreciation. I think that it is, it's like watching Olympians, there's like a certain energy. There's like I can't even describe what it is. And I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning, that actually I keep thinking about it right now, that you're like, every single person is similar. Everybody's experience is similar a little bit. Like everybody's life is essentially what I took from what you said is that even though everybody's different, we're all pretty much on the same path, like we can have different experiences. Yeah. So for me, it resonated with me. And I think it's important for us to have different perspectives from everywhere, and I listened to your podcast, and I loved what you said, and I like the content that you put out there on the interwebs, and it really resonated with me. So that's why I said yes.
I think hearing why people say yes to certain things and no to other things is important, right? And that helps us make decisions, It doesn't have to be in your genre and in your niche and right? I had somebody come on the podcast once, and when we were doing the pre-talk, she was like, well, I need to sell this course. And I was like, what do you mean you need to sell this course? She was like, I'm coming on the podcast because I am launching this course and I wanted to sell and yada, yada. I was like, yeah, this podcast ain't for you because I'm not going to do that, you know? And she's like, we can't do that. I was like, no. I was like, no, we're not selling anything on this, you know? So, and it was, you know, and she wanted an immediate return and we just didn't do the podcast, you know?
Wow.
So, anyway, last question. Yeah, maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe that was my fault too. Who knows? I believe everyone has a unique power and a thing about them that makes them amazing. You already talked about yours a little bit, Rage Against the Machine. What is your superpower that you go give to the world and then the world gives so much back to you afterwards?
Oh, I'm a great listener. I love listening to people. I love being fully present, listening to people. I just love it. It really gives me joy. And obviously I love to ask questions. I'm a curious kitten. So
you are. I liked it. I liked it. So, anyway, thank you so much for coming on. Tell everyone where they can find your stuff, like where you are on, you know, your social media stuff, your website and all that.
Yeah, you could just go to radicallyloved.com. Everything is there. I hang out mostly on Instagram. It's my name, Rosie Acosta. And yeah, but you can find, I'm easily findable and reachable, pretty accessible.
You're easy.
Yeah.
I think Instagram's the nicest platform, right? All the other ones they go to, they're like Twitter sucks, Facebook sucks. You know, like I hate all of them.
I can't tell you the last time I logged on to Facebook. I think it was like 2015 or something. Yeah. It's been a long time.
So, okay. Anyway, Rosie, thanks so much for coming on. Guys, as always, everybody, Rosie has her unique thing that she goes out and gives to the world and is amazing. And I have my power that I go out and I give to the world. Please don't go out in the world and try to be Rosie. And please don't go out in the world and try to be me. Everybody go out there and find your own power.
All right, everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of The Gospel of Fire. If you enjoyed the episode, I'd love a review on iTunes or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Don't forget to follow me on social media at FireMarshal205. If you are a BJJ enthusiast, check out my YouTube channel. I put all kinds of instructional videos out on there, so go check it out. My book is still out on Amazon by the same name as the podcast, The Gospel of Fire. So if you are interested, go check out that. And most importantly, guys, go out there every day, find your power. Thanks a lot. Guys, look, I get it. I totally get it. You opened a martial arts school and man, it's kind of crushing you. There's all this other stuff to do other than teach, right? You love teaching. You love jiu-jitsu. You love Muay Thai. You love karate, whatever it is you're teaching. And man, but there's all this other stuff. There's the front desk. There's taxes. There's curriculum. There's cleaning. There's problems, staffing, covering. Whew, man, it's so much. It's so much. Well, let me tell you, we have started what's called Easton Online, and Easton Online is here to solve all of these problems for you. Easton Online is a digital academy for martial arts school owners and managers. Will help you establish or enhance your business with best practices. Most importantly, we're going to help you get back to what it is that you love most, teaching and doing martial arts. Okay, so for more information, guys, go to easton.online. Again, that's easton.online. Add your email. You're going to get notified about the course launches. Our first course is going to be all about the first impression specialists, your front desk, and all kinds of stuff, special offers, promotions, as well as we started a podcast by the same name, Easton Online, that's going to talk about our process of how we went from a tiny little martial arts school to what is now 7 martial arts schools, 7 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Muay Thai schools, in a very holistic way that we believe kept the integrity of the art and also deals with its people very well. So again, easton.online, enter your email, and you're going to get everything you need right there. So thanks, guys.